Hello everyone, it's me again, Alan, here to talk about list building in version 3 and 4, Flames of War, and why I like the weird lists, and overall my disappointment and worries about version 4. So, with recent news, Battlefront has been announcing that it will be converting version 3 Late War into version 4 Late War. Version 4 Late War will have 3 stages of late war, ranging from early attacks in Italy, all the way to the Battle of Berlin, and I assume the Battle of Iwo Jima and Okinawa. They haven't confirmed more eastern, Far East content yet, but I will assume it will come. I will hope it will come. And with that, they will also be transitioning to a 100-point system. Now, I am the first to defend a 100-point system. I don't mind what type of system I play. I don't mind if I play 1,500 points, 100 points. I don't mind if it's like a, million-point system. But today I'm going to try and outline why this transition, I believe, is a bad thing for the hobby overall, and seeing what we as a community can do about it. My first point will be the idea that version 4 is terrible, which I do not 100% agree with. That's a video for another time, but I will agree that version 4 list building at the moment is pretty terrible. I would be happy to sit down with somebody at Battlefront someday and talk it out with them, maybe at a convention sometime, and find out why they did this. But the whole point of the 100-point system is that it would eliminate all previous books. You can no longer use Osterfront, you can no longer use any of the old version 3 mid-war books, which wasn't a big deal for mid-war. There were only 2 or 3 books, if I'm not mistaken. However, it has been years at this point since version 4 dropped, and we barely have America, the UK, Germany, Soviet Union, and Italy. That's 5 nations. 5 nations compared to the 7 that were in just the Eastern Front book in version 3. And again, this is over, I believe it's 2 years now almost. 2 years of version 4, and we have 5 nations. Now, I was discussing this with one of my friends and fellow players, but mid-war is the perfect time to have a new release, because you can have every country that was involved in the war. You have Romanians at Stalingrad, Hungarians, Finns, Germans, obviously, Soviets, obviously. You have major offensives in China against the Japanese. You have the Americans and Dutch and the Anzac in the Pacific campaign. You have, as I previously mentioned, Japan, but also Manchukuo, its puppet state. You have Thailand and its attacks and its defenses. You have Italy with its puppets in Croatia and Yugoslavia. You have volunteers from Spain. You have Vichy France and Free France. You have the UK, obviously. My point is that you have almost every country in the world that would be involved in World War II involved in mid-war. You have the perfect opportunity to create lists for every nation. But for what I've seen, Battlefront has squandered that. We have 4 Italian lists. We have the tank company, the weapons company. Sorry, we have 3 Italian lists. We have tank company, weapons company, infantry company. That's it. We do not have any Finnish lists. We do not have any Hungarian lists. We do not have any Romanian lists. We do not have any French lists, either free or Vichy. Even though part of their weekly updates is about Tunisia, where Vichy France fought, and Free France fought. You have a handful of German lists. You have a Panzer III platoon, a mixed Panzer platoon, Panzer IV platoon, Panzer Grenadier platoon, or company. These are all companies. Sorry. And you have regular grenadiers. This is, in a word, pathetic compared to the previous lists. And I know you do have the cards, the command cards, to create new lists, but in my mind that's not nearly as interesting. My great-granduncle served in a very specific regiment in the British Royal Army. I know you can't hear it from my accent, but yes, my family is mostly British. And I would love to create his unit in the game. And I'm sure that is a lot of Flames of War hobbyists love to make a unit that their family members served in. But with a generic Italian tank company, what if my ancestors served in the Italian army? Do I just have to do all my research? And even then, you're missing key units, like the CV-35s. Those served with the Italians. And, well, I could go on and on about all the things that version 4 lacks, but it all comes around to my major pet peeve. List building is not interesting in version 4. List building is overall pretty terrible. Even with the cards, you're still heavily restricted in what you can bring. You have a fraction of the equipment, and personally I don't understand why they don't have lists and stats for units that they already have in production and could only increase their own sales from. Even the Americans can only bring the Sherman and the Lee and the Stuart, and that's it. They don't have any options for their experimental half-tracks, their experimental heavy tank, like you did in version 3. I know it was silly, the mid-war monsters and everything, but you did have the options there for slightly ahistorical things. You don't have the KV2, for God's sake. I mean, they might release it with their upcoming book, but considering how few units are available right now, I somewhat doubt it. You've got no T-28s, you've got no T-26s for the Soviets, you have no Panzer 38Ts for the Germans. These are all tanks that served in vast numbers, but you're just not seeing them in the lists that they're bringing out. You're not even seeing them in the cards, which is just strange to me, genuinely. Because you would think that Battlefront would want to push the sales of every model it could produce. It just doesn't seem to be the case here. Further compounding this issue is the fact that the books come along so slowly. You have them mixed in with Team Yankee releases, and I'm sorry, but I find it hard to believe how long it takes to put out a single book. I understand the reboxing process and such, but certainly you could put out more lists and just count on us to purchase the old boxes and, recycle the command cards or stat cards, and just you go with what we have in the book. But what do I know? I feel like a lot of fans really are turned off from version 4 simply for this reason. I'm sure quite a few of you agree with me that the lack of lists for mid-war is the reason why you haven't jumped in, or you haven't jumped in whole hog. I only just recently got my fully fledged mid-war force going, and it's only because it can double as a late war or early war force. It's Italian. But my Finns have all the equipment they would need for a mid-war force, but simply don't have any of the lists. Even my Germans, the equipment I have for them, such as captured Renats and all this captured equipment. I love captured unit lists. I'm sure you guys know that from watching my videos. But I can't field any of those. I cannot field, Savoie. I cannot field Panzer 38T. I mean, as the Soviet Union, I can't field my KV2, let alone a KV5. I can't field anything from Japan. And I'm sure many of you are in the same boat. You have armies sitting on your shelves you stare longingly at, you just can't use. And I see a fire sale on various sites like Miniswap or the Flames of War swap group on Facebook. And honestly, I've been collecting quite a few armies just by getting them at fire sale prices. And I fear this is a death blow for the game if people don't find lists interesting. This has been my discussion of the current lists, and I'm afraid the video only goes downhill from here as I examine what this type of list situation can mean for late war. Late war Flames of War is something I consider relatively a treasure trove. I can bring a Panzer school. I can bring a Hungarian university that, rallied together to defend its school from the oncoming Soviet hordes. Something that sounds like a plot out of an anime, but in real life. I can play as the desperate last stand of the Polish Home Army, one of my personal favorite armies. I can play as the battered Hitler Youth as they desperately try and defend their homes and families from the oncoming Soviets. I can play the crazy experimental mad scientists of the SS with their Sturmtigers and their King Tigers, thinking that these wonder weapons will win us the war. I can play as fanatic Japanese defending their home country from American imperialists who will firebomb their cities if they fail. I can play as Italians, either on the side of the Allies attempting to liberate their country from fascism, or on the side of the Axis, believing that the Allies are the invaders and attempting desperately to defend their homeland. I can play as the French, landing on the beaches of Normandy and assisting wherever they can in their bid to reclaim their homeland. Just as I can play with the Romanians, using the infantry as either Soviet-equipped units or as Axis-equipped units as they flip tail right at the end of the war. The same could be said by Finns, who can either be played in the Continuation War or the Lapland War. This is simply due to one thing. Version 3 has been around a long time. Version 3 has lists for every occasion. Anything you could ever want is in some sort of version 3 list. If you want to play with CV-35s, you can find a list for that. If you want to play with nothing but King Tigers, you can find a list for that. If you want to play with nothing but the crazy designs of Porsche and want Elephants, Ferdinands, and a Porsche Tiger, you can have a list for that. Version 4 Mid-War lacks any of that variety. Version 4 Mid-War removed variety from the game in general. I cannot expect that they will have Hitler Youth. I cannot expect that they will have partisans. I don't expect that they will have military police. I don't expect a lot for version 4. And if they killed these lists, all the lists that people love, it will kill the game, in my opinion. Certainly for me, at the very least. My interest in the game will diminish if I know that I will have to wait for years or possibly even a decade before they finally get around to the Japanese or to the Polish home army. Because, I don't know, maybe they don't think that's as profitable as other things. But what sounds the most profitable to me is to not upgrade the point system to 100 points and simply allow the books to remain as is. Sorry if this got a little bit rambly and ranty. It is something that truly upsets me, and I'm sure truly upsets you. And I want a place in this community for people to respectfully voice their dissent. Because I understand that a lot of people were needlessly upset when version 4 launched. But looking at the direction it's come, I believe that version 4, in the list building department, was a mistake. And I believe that we as fans need to voice that it was a mistake before we allow one of our favorite games, and I'm sure it's many of your favorite games as well, before we allow it to die. And I fear for the fate of the game if it continues like this. I fear that we will just fall by the wayside, a forgotten game, and models unfortunately clogging our shelves. Perhaps we'll eventually see Yugoslavian lists for Team Yankee and get to use our models again, but it's things like this that worry me. I won't say they keep me up at night. It's a hobby above all things, but they do. They worry me. It is possible that they will handle this correctly. I will give Battlefront amazing credit. I will make a follow-up video where I do nothing but apologize and praise Battlefront if they release something akin to the book that Games Workshop released with Age of Sigmar, where they just translated all the point values over so that you could still use all your old models, but in the new system. If they do that, I will sing their praises. I will make a follow-up video. I will do a live webcam of it where I'm unboxing the book and everything. I'll do it all live and smile and be happy, and I will be extremely happy for them. But I worry that they will handle it badly, as they did with version 4 Mid-War. And that 2 or 3 years down the road, we'll have a Berlin book, a Normandy book, and maybe something on the Italian front if we're lucky. That our Finns, our Hungarians, our penal battalions, our engineer Sapori companies, our Japanese forces, our U.S. Marine forces, that they will all be sitting on our shelves, doing us no good, doing Battlefront no good, just unless we want to play version 3, which I may have to adopt. I started Flames of War with version 4, but the recent list building, it really irritates me. But in my next little section, I'm going to explain to you what I think perfect list building is for Flames of War, and where version 4 can really achieve itself. Now, I don't have high hopes for this, but in my opinion, perfect list building is to be able to take basically anything you want. It doesn't necessarily have to be effective. If I choose to bring nothing but FT-17s to a battle and think I'm going to win, that's more a reflection on me than it is on the game. But anything that could be found in history should be playable, and most everything can be found in history. You have Renault FT-17s in the Battle of Paris, well, battle around Paris. You have the Polish Home Army, which used all sorts of equipment, anything it could find, basically. You have CV-35s, which attempted to liberate an airfield for the Hungarians. It was part of their police department. My point is, you can find anything, if you look hard enough. And what I would like to see Battlefront do is to embrace that. To create a system where we can customize our forces properly, as we can now. Even if they don't include the extensive amount of lists, I would like to see them include the options for lists, unlike what we've seen in version 4 so far. Though what they have been getting much better at. Credit where credit's due, the recent Iron Cross and Enemy at the Gates books are significantly better than, say, Fighting First or Avante. They're both just straight better books. They've got more variety, they've got more unit variety, they've got more... The difference between a hero battalion and a regular battalion is wonderful. I'd like to see that little bit of variety. And I would love to see that with upcoming version 4 Flames of War. Upcoming version 4 late war lists. I would love to see the Germans have, say, a support option for Panzer 38Ts to represent the tank schools, or the Hungarians to have a support option for the CV-33s. The Finns could have support options for BT-42s, at the same time have core units be, say, a company with T-26s, T-28s, and maybe a KV-1. I think if they handle it properly, we could see some of the greatest lists yet, because you could truly customize what you have, even if it is slightly ahistorical. Which is not something I want to see, but I consider it the best of limited options, to be honest. And it's something I believe the recent editions of 40K and Age of Sigmar have been doing extremely well. You can really customize your forces out this way without truly going against lore. For example, in 40K, you can take a variety of different formations, each giving its own unique benefits. And you can do that as any faction, but you also can't freely mix factions anymore. If you're Eldar, you have to team up with other Eldar. You can't just randomly throw in a little bit of everything. And I don't know, I have hopes that we're in a new wargaming renaissance and that just Battlefront blows us all away with the new list building. But share in the comments if you have that kind of optimism, because I would love to hear it. I would love to hear people have optimism about version 4. Well, I don't quite know what the point of this rant was, other than the fact that I just simply wanted to voice the idea that version 4 is an okay system, but what we really hate is the lists. I don't want people to think that we are just misguidedly hating the game when we say that we don't like version 4. because I consider myself in that camp now. And what I would truly love to see is just the return of historical lists to make us a truly historical game again. And I want you guys to be able to share this video if you share my opinions. If, I've spoken to you on some level, I would love you to, give me the little thumbs up and let me know in the comments and, all that classic YouTuber jazz. And I guess that's all I have to say on it, really. Hang in there, stay in touch. Let me know how you guys think. Do you guys think that I'm wrong? I'd be happy to explore the idea that it's not the list building, but something in the rules that makes version 4 a lot more distasteful. But personally, I like the version 4 rules. I just truly, truly hate the list building with a passion. And I believe that list building is the most enjoyable part of a war game, so it really sets me apart. Nevertheless, I would love to hear a good discussion in the comments on this. Go ahead and hit subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I'm going to create probably a couple more of these talking videos tonight, just because I don't really have anything new to unbox lately. I'll be picking up the Stalingrad starter set. Unfortunately, it's out of stock right now for me. But I'll make a video review of that as soon as I can. But you know how it is. Like it if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it. Leave me a comment. And I will see you guys on the next video.